Let's be real. You're not going to move someone out of a portfolio if you think things are going well, are you?
We're going to need to go ahead and move you downstairs into storage B.
No.
So if you could just go ahead and pack up your stuff and move it down there, that would be terrific.
The retirement of two Labor MPs gave Albo the perfect opportunity to move Claire O'Neill and Andrew Giles from the Home Affairs and Immigration portfolios respectively. That the two were moved on shouldn't really be a surprise to anyone. There'd been weeks or months of scrutiny to the point it became a case of when, not if, they'd be moved on. The retirements gave the government perfect cover to reshuffle things and tie the changes to necessity rather than performance, or perceived performance anyway.
I'm very proud of the fact that we have gone now 2 years and 2 months with precisely the same team in place. When team members step down, though, it does provide you with an opportunity for others to step up.
That part of the story, though, was not the interesting part for me. I was far more interested in the downstream effects and the change to the housing portfolio. Julie Collins has been moved on.
Julie Collins, having done an outstanding job as the Housing Minister, will move to the Minister for Agriculture, Fisheries and Forestry.
Housing is one of the biggest issues we have in Australia at the moment, and I've said it a few times before, but I feel like she's been largely absent from any debate on the issue. Collins has been moved across to agriculture, with the government probably feeling that it's not an area that they can take too much damage in heading toward the next election. So with Julie Collins out and Claire O'Neill looking for a new portfolio, Albo's dropped her into housing. Claire O'Neill is one of the government's more polished media performers, and I'm guessing this is what Albo's banking on when he's dropping her into the portfolio. Watching Question Time, she's definitely one of the pollies I've noticed has a real knack for working the camera to generate her social media content.
It was like she was peering into my soul.
As someone with more experience fronting the media, Albo will be hoping O'Neill can help combat the opposition his government are getting from the Greens. We'll have to wait and see whether the change translates to a policy shift or if it's just more of the status quo, just with a new salesperson. That one of Claire O'Neill's first acts as Housing Minister was a photo op probably points to more of the status quo. At a state level, it's been good to see that Labor in Queensland have started to roll up their sleeves and are taking some positive steps. Unfortunately for them, they may have left it a little too late. If nothing else though, it demonstrates that change can happen if there's enough political will. That is, if a government is prepared to spend a little political capital. Unfortunately, at the federal level, Labor have largely wasted much of their first-term capital, and the fact that the gap between Labor and the coalition is shrinking probably suggests we shouldn't expect to see any significant changes to housing policy ahead of the next election. In the meantime, for the large percentage of voters who are renting and unable to break into the property market, good luck, I guess. Rents are rising at record rates, and from a higher base than they ever have before. They're rising well above wage growth, which is pushing more and more people into rental stress. It's good to see that at least some of the states are trying to address the problem, and they're giving government at the federal level some potential food for thought. For example, the federal government could look to push or incentivise states to introduce the Vacant Property Tax that's been implemented in Victoria, as well as elsewhere around the world. Late last year in Victoria, the Greens pushed Labor to triple the tax if a property was unused for 3 years. In theory, this would encourage vacant homeowners to either make them available for rent or sell them. In Melbourne alone, the most recent report from Prosper Australia put the number of vacant dwellings in the city at 100,000. Prosper use water usage data to determine whether or not a property is vacant, so the data is arguably a little more reliable than what we get from the census. If you look at the city of Melbourne alone, so the local government area, there were 10,000 vacant properties in that area alone, which equates to around half the number of new properties built in the city of Melbourne over a 5-year period. That's huge. Making use of currently unused properties has the potential to provide a massive community benefit, with quicker results compared to waiting on private property developers to solve the problem. Then there's the arguably even more controversial option of acquisition. The federal government could explore incentivising state governments to purchase up vacant property and convert it to public or social housing. States already have the power to go down the compulsory acquisition path if they want to.
For the government to acquire vacant properties, could that actually happen?
Yes, legally there is nothing to stop state governments doing that. In fact, constitutionally, across most state governments, in legal theory, the Crown ultimately owns all the land. Now, of course, state governments generally have either legislated constitutions or laws that provide just compensation if they take your land away, but there's nothing to stop them taking your land away and for any purpose they want.
Presumably the people who own the homes might not like that sort of intervention. So what are the arguments against something like that? Because that's a pretty good way to fix this. 140,000 homes, wow, you could just get them back tomorrow.
Yeah, look, it really comes down to what you see as being the role of the state, and it's kind of an ideological and economic question. If you see the role of the state being to fix market inefficiencies, well, there's a pretty strong argument for either taxing or just acquiring these vacant homes and putting them to a better use, or at least charging the people who are not using them for the privilege of leaving them empty.
In terms of buying up vacant property, the Queensland Government appear to have already started going down that path, which has been a real positive thing to see. At the federal level though, I just don't know that I hold out much hope in the short to medium term. Not from what I'm seeing at the moment anyway. It looks to me like the government generally seem happy with the path that they're on when it comes to housing and are not going to be too keen on any dramatic policy shifts. The only thing they don't seem to be happy about is the persistent noise from the Greens and the crossbench pushing them to do more. And I wouldn't be all that surprised to find out that that was a large factor in the decision to move Claire O'Neil to the housing portfolio.
Claire O'Neil will be the Minister for Housing and Minister for Homelessness. Claire, of course, is a great communicator. She'll lead the delivery of our ambitious Homes for Australia plan that has been established by Minister Collins, and will be able to pursue the great challenge that we have of delivering the range of programs, all aimed at delivering further supply and making sure that the issue of housing is dealt with, something that you can't deal with overnight, but something that requires a concerted approach, and Claire O'Neil will certainly bring that to the fore.
This reshuffle is an opportunity for the government to revise and refocus how they plan to tackle the housing crisis in Australia, and their chance to build a long-term vision for the future and to take that vision to the next election. They could view this as an opportunity to enact some real change, freshen things up. But whether they view it that way or just view this move as a way to stem some of the bleeding, I guess time will tell. Let's be honest, the Cabinet Reshuffle was a great opportunity to remove Claire O'Neil and Andrew Giles from a couple of problematic portfolios. But besides that, it was also a great opportunity to bring in a more polished media performer.
Claire, of course, is a great communicator.
Onto housing, an area that, heading into the next election, the Labor government should be rightly feeling quite exposed.